Okay. Sure. Okay. Welcome, University of Oregon students, Lewis and Clark and Willamette. We appreciate you joining this program hosted by Oregon Law with the Oregon Supreme Court, Court of Appeals and Commissioners Court. I'm Felipe Alonso. I work in the Career Center. I'm going to hand it off to Justice Duncan in just a moment, but what I'd like to say just off the bat is the court has reserved some time at the end for questions, but if you have questions during the program, feel free to put them in the chat. Even the people in the room, it looks like almost everyone's online, or you can raise your hand. If you don't have your laptop, that's totally fine. If it's on,
Thank you so much for the time. You just got here. Nice to have you in the sheet and let us know how many people are here, how many people are interested. Good way to.
yeah, I think is someone's talking, I think, who's maybe doesn't realize they're not muted. Okay. Okay. So with no further delays, I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to Justice Duncan to start the introductions. Thank you, Justice Duncan.
Great. Thank you, Philippe. We're really happy to be here, and we appreciate everybody's attendance and interest in the externships with the Oregon Appellate Courts. My name is Rebecca Duncan. I'm a justice on the Oregon Supreme Court, and I am joined by members of our Court of Appeals and our Appellate Commissioner's Office. We're going to introduce ourselves by telling you what court we're with and what experience we have as or working with externs. For myself, I've been an appellate judge since 2010. Almost every term, I take one extern and have done that at my time in the court. Later on in the program, we'll talk about what an extern does, but I find it a great opportunity for students to learn about the inner workings of the court. And then I'll hand this off to Judge Egan, who is a member of our Oregon Court of Appeals.
Hi, I'm Jim Egan. I go by Jim outside of the chambers, and if you call me judge, I'll probably get confused for a little bit. I practiced law in Albany for 25 years and came to the circuit court bench in 2010. I was elected to the Court of Appeals in 2012 and took the bench there in 2013. That's about it.
Thank you. And then I will hand it off to Ellen Slatkin, who's my current clerk.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Slatkin. I'm a law clerk to Justice Duncan. I had worked with our extern last semester, which was a real pleasure. And while I was in law school, I was an extern at the Ninth Circuit. Both great experiences.
Danae, would you go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sinai Avila, and I'm a clerk for Judge Egan. I work with the Oregon Court of Appeals, and I also helped during the extern hiring cycle for summer, and I was able to supervise one of our externs as well.
Great. Thank you. And Rachel Henry.
Hi, all. I work for the Appellate Commissioner, who is a staff member and a person at the Court of Appeals. I've been there since 2023, and I've had externs there every single semester since I started working in summer 2023. And then in law school, I didn't extern at the courts, but I externed at Metropolitan Public Defenders for 2 semesters. So yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. And we'll turn it to Judge Egan. Judge Egan, can you tell us about your experience working with externs and what you like most about doing that?
So in my private practice, during the 25 years I was in Albany, I regularly took in externs, people that wanted to do something around the law. Generally, they were undergraduates or graduate students. When I came to the circuit court bench, we just didn't have time we didn't have clerkships and we didn't have externships. We just didn't have them. But from the moment I came to the Court of Appeals, I started taking externs. Initially, when when Justice Duncan and I started were at the Court of Appeals, externships were kind of a loosey-goosey program. So I had undergraduate externs, I had law school externs, and it wasn't very well regulated, but it became a much more methodical and regulated sort of position on the courts in the teens, and it's really turned into quite a program. We have an introductory program we go through. kind of a methodical sort of teaching about how externs and clerkships run. So I've got quite a bit of experience. I probably had a dozen or more externs over the course of the last 15 years. Oh, and by the way, what I like most about externs, I like the wonder and excitement that they have when they come to the court. As you can see, these other clerks, that have been here for a couple of years, they're kind of jaded, and the wonder and excitement kind of wears off. But I really enjoy the wonder and excitement of externs, people that are coming to the court for the first time and just really are excited about what's going on.
I would echo that. I think it's exciting for us at the court to be working with students who come to us with a new perspective, new ideas, questions about things that we might have just, treated as, well, that's the way it's always been done, and having fresh eyes and ideas makes us look at everything and assess what we're doing and assess our own assumptions. Rachel, go ahead.
Excitement is infectious, right.
Rachel, you've worked with a number of externs. What do you like best about working with them?
Yeah, we've had a lot of externs, and I also echo the fact that the wonder and excitement. I still feel the wonder and excitement. Honestly, our office though deals with a lot higher volume of motions. We deal with motions and petitions on the court. So having externs genuinely in our office is so helpful too. There's externships that can really range. So, you can choose which semester you're doing your externship, oftentimes how many hours you're doing your externship. So it really depends, but we find them really helpful, and they just get integrated into our dynamic really well.
Thank you. And we will be talking about the 3 different offices that are represented here. So the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and Appellate Commissioner's Office, and how the externships might vary from office to office. But Jim, would you tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts? What is an externship? How is it different from a clerkship? When do we take externs? Those sorts of details.
Sure. So let's talk about what does an extern do? Do externs, do they automatically become clerks? So an extern can be something like a paralegal for a judge who maybe uses them for more procedural problems and performing sort of research functions. In other chambers, the extern functions as another clerk who does substantive writing. You don't have to be an extern to become a clerk at our court. I think a lot of students self-select themselves out of externships and out of clerkships because they're not law review, because they weren't in law review, or because they're not, moot court in moot court and doing those sorts of activities. I think that's mistaken. It's not always about grades. It's not always about what's going on in law school. Sometimes it's about your experience. So I'll tell you that in my experience, I just hire writers. If somebody's a former reporter at a newspaper, I'm hiring that person. and if somebody has a writing experience, writing under deadlines, I hire those people because they know how to get the job done. Do you want me to talk about the terms of the judges and the likes, and how often they're hiring externs?
Yes. So how often? Yeah, that would be great.
So the terms of the externships are generally 13 weeks for accredited clerkships, or for accredited externships, but that can vary depending if it's non-credited. Those terms can kind of vary, but judges like to have enough time to get an extern into the groove. So a 4-week externship or a 6-week externship, judges are going to kind of say no to that. If you want to go longer, that's never a problem. Generally speaking, externs are here depending on the number of hours that they put into their externship, depend on the number of credits they get if they're credited. So we have kind of a 12 to 20 hour slot. The people are there a quarter time to half time, and then the 32 hour to 40 hour full time slot. We had an unaccredited extern here last summer, Joanna Mann, and she just worked full time. It was just awesome. And sometimes I forgot when she wasn't working, and I had to kind of back off a little bit. As as for remote options and hybrid options, the Supreme Court likes to come in 3 days a week, and generally speaking, their staff and their externs are there 2 or 3 days a week. At the Court of Appeals, we are almost exclusively remote. And so we're only coming in on, for the most part, on days that we're arguing or days that we have face-to-face conferences or days that we have activities. And sometimes that's as few as a couple of days a month and as many as 6 days a month. So our externs are working primarily remotely, while the Supreme Court's externs are working primarily hybrid. As to the number of externs that we have, that varies wildly from semester to semester. The average is 5 or 6 externs on the Court of Appeals at any given time. We have 13 judges with 6-year terms. So we got plenty, and our clerks are doing 2-year terms. So we got plenty of people working here. But the externs, the judges are a little more selective as to how much time they have to put into the externs work, and how much time that the clerks have to help supervise those externs. So it's averaging 5 or 6 per term in the Court of Appeals, but that may double in the summertime because that's just a time when externs like to be here, and when the judges are a little more open to having them. The Court of Appeals is an intermediate court. So we're not a law-making court like Justice Duncan's Supreme Court. We're a error-correcting court. So for that reason, an externship with a Court of Appeals is an opportunity to learn the ropes of trial practice from the perspective of the people that are critiquing the trial. It's really kind of a unique experience. An externship at the Supreme Court is more of a policy-making sometimes experience, although they often correct our errors. Like I said, there are 13 judges on the Court of Appeals. What do we review at the Court of Appeals? Well, it's easier to explain what the Court of Appeals does not review. We do not review mandamus from circuit court. We don't review tax cases, and we don't review capital punishment. Everything else is in our purview. Criminal, juvenile dependency, and I'm doing this from the most number of cases we have down to the least number of cases. The most cases we have, 50% of our docket is criminal. Another large chunk of it is juvenile dependency. Agency practice, that's unemployment, land use, workers' compensation, the psychiatric review, I can't even remember the PSRB, the Psychiatric Review Board. Every licensing board, nursing boards, everything is reviewed by the Court of Appeals. Domestic relations, civil commitments, civil cases like torts to contracts, juvenile delinquency, and even more. So that's the kind of experience you're going to get at the Court of Appeals. Those are the kind of cases that you're going to see. What do externs do at the Court of Appeals? Sinai, what do you think? What do externs do? In my chambers, they do everything, don't they?
Yes, I would also back up Judge Egan on that. Well, from the perspective that I saw where we were able to supervise our last summer clerk, extern, she basically got a glimpse of what a clerkship really entails, which means that at first we had her drafting memos to support opinions that either clerks were working on or that judges are working on. And once we are able to show them the ropes kind of how the opinion writing standards of review or like just legal holdings or rules that are very specific to the type of work that we do, and you could tell they're just feeling more confident, then we start assigning them cases that they can start working on, whether that's precedential opinions or non-precedential. And we often want to make sure that they enjoy the cases that they're working on. So we give them a couple of options that they get to choose on, and they have a sense of, they just have a sense of knowing that they get to choose the areas of law that they're most interested in. So every judge will be different, but at least with us, it's a lot of legal writing, and also on oral argument days. A really important part of the clerk or the externship and even clerkship too, is that we get to be at the deliberations table, meaning where the judges are discussing before the oral arguments and after. And it's just a really insightful opportunity to get to hear how the judges go through the legal analysis, hearing all the substantive law that they have off the back of their hands, and just getting a better idea on what makes a good attorney, good oral advocacy, and briefing. So overall, just a great opportunity on how to become a better lawyer in the future.
Okay, Becky, I think that's it for
All
us.
right, for the Court of Appeals. That's great. And now we'll turn to the Appellate Commissioner's office, and Rachel will explain a little bit about the background of that office, because that might be one of our lower profile offices, but they do incredible work for both courts, the Court of Appeals. And Rachel, why don't you tell us what the office does and what an extern does at the Commissioner's office?
Yeah, so our office is a bit different because every other externship that you'd be applying to through that same link, ours is included in that, but ours is not a judicial chamber. So that's the main difference. So the Office of the Appellate Commissioner was established in 2008 by statute. And actually, there's plenty of case law now out there that has kind of established the bounds of the Appellate Commissioner, because she's not a judge or an elected official, but she actually works through the delegated authority of the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. So we are a part of the Court of Appeals and sort of created to get at the high case volume at the Court of Appeals. And so we're sort of triaging early on in the case, kind of bookending early on in the case, and at the end of the case, various motions and petitions. So if civil procedure is your thing, definitely emphasize that if you're interested in working for us. We mostly work remotely. So a theme that you'll see throughout is that, there are some things that are true across the board, and then other things are very chambers or our office specific. So oftentimes chambers can, they vary in the...
Someone was detected at your front door.
Oh.
Somebody was detected at my front door.
Judge
Sorry.
Egan's front door. But
Court
yes,
security.
and actually, we work really closely with Judge Egan and Judge Joyce, another judge on the Court of Appeals, who are in the motions department. And so part of our work and part of the externs work is working closely with Judge Egan, and like Sinai was saying, get to see the judge's reasoning through things. And so we get to sit in on their conference, and our externs go along for that too. And they get to see the judges analyze their motions and petition memos that they're writing. So our office is mostly remote. We do about one day in person, about 1 or 2 days in person a week. And it's been more on the 1 day a week trend. And then Judge Egan was talking about hours a week that courts would look for, or that chambers would look for. Our office for sure is open to someone working full-time, even through the spring or fall semester. So summer, of course, and then for spring or fall as well. Our current extern is at Lewis and Clark, and he is working 40 hours full-time. So that's just is a great experience. Our office is it's niche. It's kind of unfamiliar, even to some Oregon practitioners. They're unfamiliar with our office, that it even exists. And so it's definitely, yeah, it's more niche, but honestly, I think it's the best. And reflecting on it with other clerks of the Court of Appeals too, they asked me, oh, how many things did you get to work on? And we work on about 100 substantive motions go through our office each month. So each month it's about 100 substantive motions, which means that we need legal analysis. We need help from the extern, who honestly is just doing my role. So just alongside me, like, I'm going to be mentoring that person, but our externs are really a mini clerk for our office. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end too.
So Rachel,
Just a pitch for we call it the ACO, the Appellate Commissioner's Office. My first chief, my second chief, myself, and my current chief often call the appellate commissioner the 14th judge on the Court of Appeals. The judge is just handling motions all the time. They're writing substantive opinions, and we sit with them in conference at least once a month. And in
Yeah.
that period of time, we're generally reviewing 10 to 15 orders that the appellate commissioner is writing, and Rachel's writing those opinions. The externs are writing those, writing those orders. The externs are writing those orders, and the ACO herself are writing those orders. So it's a real hopping place, and it's important work. So sorry, Justice Duncan, I apologize for that.
I was going to say additional things about the ACO's office. So Rachel, some of the motions that you're working on, these are motions that involve things like whether something is appealable, whether the court has jurisdiction, those sorts of things that anyone going into litigation is going to need to know in order to get their case in the door of an appellate court. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. It is, it's quite amazing the breadth of motions. Like I hadn't realized before starting my job. But yes, all types of motions and potentially dispositive motions. Now I'm going to forget the number, but the Chief Judge Laugustin recently had compiled for a CLE the number of cases that were disposed of at the Court of Appeals, and it was over 1,000 a year that were disposed of by order. So yes, these are jurisdictional issues that either we're raising ourselves because, as you know from civil procedure, jurisdiction is always going to be analyzed. And so either we're raising it ourselves or through motions, the parties are raising it to us. And our extern right now is actually working on a motion to dismiss. And he started it day one, his first day. I was like, here's a motion to dismiss. Do we have jurisdiction? Was service proper? And so, yes, very important work and a wide range of things, but potentially dispositive motions. Yeah.
So certainly things that would help you know what to do and what not to do and when you're trying to come into an appellate court and be really familiar with reading rules closely and how to make sure you do that in litigation. And turning to the Supreme Court, Ellen, will you tell us a little bit about the Supreme Court and how an externship at the Supreme Court might differ from an externship at the Court of Appeals?
Sure. So the Supreme Court is the court of last resort. It's also a court of discretionary review. So we don't have to take all of the cases that petition for review. So half of our job is figuring out which cases to take, and the other half of the job is figuring out how to decide the cases that we do take. So an extern will work mostly on petitions for review under the supervision of the clerk. Depending on the chambers, may do substantive opinion work. They get to spend time in chambers meetings. They get feedback from the clerk or the justice, depending on how chambers operates. And they are in person, generally in person as much as they can be, depending on how in person the chambers is. Our chambers is often in person, and it's nice to have an extern who's in person. Yeah, it's a lot of reading and writing, a lot of legal research, and a lot of feedback on your legal writing.
Thank you. So I'm hoping that Sinai and Ellen and Rachel might share with the students, what do you think the benefits of externing are in general based on your experience, but also externing at the appellate courts?
I can go. Yeah, so I was reflecting on that one because as I was thinking of the benefits, I felt like I was writing about my own benefits through my clerkship as well. And I think that they're really similar. But just to name a couple, I mean, you really get to grapple with legal issues in a way that reminded me of law school, but this is real life. These are real cases. These are real people. These are real families and people who could possibly stay in prison or not. And so I think being able to remain curious about the cases and understanding more about the law has just been a really invaluable experience. I can feel myself just becoming a better legal writer and thinker. And I would say one of the more, there have been many rewarding parts about the clerkship. And a really big one is really just seeing your work product become published as a presidential opinion on issues in areas of law that are really important. And it could range on topics that touch like immigration law or native rights law or environmental criminal law. And seeing an extern, because at least with the Court of Appeals, like cases move pretty quick. Our last extern was able to work on at least maybe about 4 or 5 opinions. And I want to say like 3 of those were precedential. And I would say of those 3, it was primarily a lot of her direct work. And of course, I know another clerk said I think it was Ellen, all of our work gets feedback, everyone's work, whether it's like a judges or staff attorneys or clerks, like everybody will get feedback. So that's always a really important part of the legal writing process. But being able to see the joy in an extern when their opinion gets published, and the fact that they have a couple of writing samples that helped create that published opinion was just such an exciting moment that I get to celebrate with the extern.
Thank you. Rachel, Ellen?
I was gonna say something similar about the amount of feedback. I think it can be a little scary at first, especially. It just feels kind of vulnerable to be working with such brilliant minds, and kind of just be part of it. Feel like it could be a little intimidating, and you lose that really quickly because you see how kind everyone is and genuinely how much they want you to succeed. So the amount that you learn from just that, being exposed to having your writing, you know, thanked so much, like with Judge Egan in our motions department conference, he'll always be saying thank you to our externs. Obviously, we're always giving substantive feedback that's huge. And yeah, like Sinai said, the writing sample is a practical takeaway.
Yeah, I think I just want to emphasize how much writing you actually get to do. So our extern, at the end of her term here, she was writing 2 petition memos a week, which is a lot of writing and both really helpful for the court. And it was incredible to watch her writing develop over the course of the summer. I got to work with her. And so it happens quickly. You get to write so much on extremely important substantive legal issues. And I think what I remember from my externship and what I've enjoyed so much about clerking is getting to reason through extremely difficult legal topics with very, very, very smart people. And that's just a real pleasure to watch people's minds work in ways that you can't really imagine. And it's just, I found my externship and I'm finding my clerkship to be a little bit like a kid in a candy store. You're just getting to explore incredible things with brilliant people. And yeah, same is true for extern.
And I would add to it, if you serve as an extern in our appellate court system, another benefit is because of the nature of our work, you get exposed to a lot of different legal issues, different substantive areas of law. So you may have whatever your focus is in law school, you'll have your basic doctrinal courses, you might be pursuing a particular type of a subject area in law school, but you might in an externship or later on in a clerkship, be exposed to an area of the law that you had no idea was out there or you didn't know that you would be interested in. And at all of our different offices, the volume, while it's challenging, it means that you get to see a lot of different things, and it might help you get a better idea of what you do like or what you don't like as you're at an early stage in your career and trying to figure out what you're going to do next. And I couldn't not also add that one of the benefits of being an extern at our courts is that you get an opportunity to work directly with a whole bunch of people who are invested in the development of Oregon law and Oregon lawyers. And that's true whether you're working remotely or whether you're working in person. You will meet judges, you will be in conferences with the judges if you're at the Court of Appeals, you will attend oral arguments at both courts, you will work with our staff attorneys and with our clerks and your fellow externs. And so really quickly, the network of people who are experienced appellate practitioners will just blossom for you. And that is just, we hope, personally rewarding and also professionally rewarding as we can provide guidance about career paths or people that we might be able to help you connect with in the community. We do this externship program and you may hear this as you're applying or looking to volunteer somewhere, and a place will say, well, we just don't have the capacity to take volunteers. To have a good program like we hope we have, it does take investment from the judges, staff attorneys, clerks who are trying to support it. We do this because we hope to grow help to contribute to the growth of strong future Oregon lawyers or lawyers in general, even if you leave the state, who have confidence in our judicial system and who can go out into their communities and do whatever work they want to do well for their clients. So that's where we're invested. And I think if you come here, you'll see that from the judges and the staff attorneys and everyone you come into contact with. So I'd add those benefits. I do have to say, and now we'll move into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of our additional nuts and bolts information about the externship. Unfortunately, the externships, we are unable to pay the externs. This is a volunteer position with all of our offices. We do welcome and encourage people to seek outside funding. We know students, if any of you are on the line from Willamette, have gotten their public interest fellowships have been used to support externships. I just happen to know that from one of the externs we've had here. That may also be true at Oregon and Lewis and Clark. There are other places you can look for funding. The Oregon State Bar, which I encourage you all, if you're not already connecting to the state bar or your local bar, we have a welcoming community and encourage you to, oh, Aubrey, thank you. You're saying there are funding opportunities for OLS PIF. So look to your schools. At this time of year, there's funding opportunities through public interest programs. Please do check those out. I would also point you to the State Bar. It has a diversity and inclusion program with a public honors fellowship. That fellowship, we have had students use that fellowship to come and work at the courts. That fellowship has a deadline of January 18th, so just 3 days from now. It does fall before our due date for the applications and obviously our decision date for the application. But my understanding is you can make a proposal even if you don't have a secured position, and you can get, if you're awarded the fellowship, you can take the money to the place where you are able to work. So if you haven't already looked at the State Bar's diversity and inclusion program, you might want to take a look at that. It's available on their website, the information and the application. So the application process for our offices, we do one single application. The way you access it is through the National Center for State Courts, CORA, that's C-O-R-A, CORA website. That is, and I don't want to kind of undercut ourselves, but that's the place where you can go and look for externships across the country. But that is where our application is. You use that application to apply. Your application will be considered by all 3 of our offices. The deadline, right now we are recruiting for this coming summer and the fall. When you look at the application, you'll see that it'll say what terms are you interested in. You can check multiple ones. It is possible, and chambers vary, but some of us like to hire someone who will be full-time in the summer and then carry on to the fall. I have started to do that, and I've done that because I've had summer externs who get here, they work full-time, but they have projects because it's appellate law that they're still working on and they want to continue to work on. And they often would be at the end of the summer, and several of them just volunteered to stay, but some of the chambers are looking for people who will be summer carrying on through fall, full-time summer, part-time fall. All of the application information that I'm going to give you right now is available on the Oregon Judicial Department's website. So you can go there, and if you want to just look up to find out exactly what you need to apply. Our application consists of a cover letter, resume, your law school and college transcripts. Unofficial copies of those are fine. A list of references. We don't require letters of recommendation, so just a list of references. And then a writing sample. Because for all 3 of our offices, writing is something that it's important to us, take care in selecting your writing sample, but also know that we view these positions as training positions. So we hope you're going to come in with writing at one level and leave at writing at a higher level. So again, our deadline for our application is January 26th, so towards the end of this month. And you do it through Quora. After the applications are in, you may be contacted and offered an interview. The way we do our hiring for the externs is you will come and you will do an interview. There will be a small panel of people asking you questions, maybe additional people also listening to your interview. This is different from how we hire for clerks. You don't have to interview with every chamber that's hiring or every chamber that has you on a list of potential applicants. We interview as a group to try and make this efficient. That helps it make it easier for more chambers to participate. So you'll have one interview. Maybe you could get follow-up questions from a particular chambers, but the general process is you have one interview. Then all of the hiring chambers will meet and figure out where someone might land. It's completely up to you whether you apply to a particular office or all three offices. The application is for all three. You could in your cover letter specify that you wanted to work for a particular office. That's entirely up to you. But I would, even though there are differences that we've hopefully just explained to you about these different offices and what you might do as an externship, all of these are really valuable positions. And if I were you, if I were in your position, I wouldn't limit my opportunities to be hired. It may be that one court has more judges who are hiring externs in a term than another. So it is up to you, but you might want to leave yourself open for as many possible offers as you could get. So that's the application process. If you want to get more information, I really encourage you to talk to your career services office. They can put you in touch with other people who have externed already or who have externed already. They can tell you about the recruitment process and their experience. And so you can gather more information, make sure that this is something you'd like. We will also be participating at the Opportunities for Law in Oregon employment panel that is coming up. So if you want more information, it'll pretty much be the same information. But if you happen to be at Olio, we may have someone at that table come over and say hi. So far, we have talked about the three offices in the appellate courts. I would also like to draw your attention to the tax court. Tax court has a really well-supported extern program. Amelia, who's with the Supreme Court, used to work at the Court of Appeals. And Amelia, I think the summer externship program, and it's summer only there, right? They would take on 5 or 6 students this summer. Is that right? Amelia?
Yes.
Yes.
They typically take on 4 externs, sometimes 3. And they are a wonderful office. So I would plug them definitely.
So it's a separate recruitment. The information for that office is available on their website. Excellent learning opportunity. They will do the same types of things that we do to improve your research and writing over the course of the summer term. So if you're interested in the tax court, and you don't have to be an expert in tax yet, you don't have to have taken any tax courses or necessarily want to practice tax. It's an opportunity to just practice your research and your writing in that area. And they are having their own information session, and there's information on that on their website. And I would encourage you to attend that information session. It is on January 22nd, if you are considering that. So we have plenty of time for questions, and we're happy to take them. If you have any about the work, I guess before I close, I would say, for those of you who are thinking down the road a little bit, we've been talking about summer externships. We do clerk hiring. Those are postgraduate 1 or 2 year positions, tax court, court of appeals, Rachel's appellate commissioner office. Those applications will be due in August, I think. And we hire a year out. So the people who we hired this past August of 2025 will be starting in August 2026. So if you or anyone you know is interested in clerking, know that it's about a year ahead that we do the recruitment. And we'd love to have you find out more about our clerkships. That information is also available on our website. But if you're thinking longer term, please keep the Oregon court clerkships on your radar. Any questions?
Justice Duncan, I have a question. This is Felipe. I was curious, and Judge Egan also, is it advantageous at all to have extern for the courts when in the clerkship process? Do former externs often get hired, or at least occasionally?
That is a great question. We have currently at the Supreme Court, one of our former externs is now a full-time clerk. It is not at all a prerequisite. And as Judge Egan was saying, as our externship program has grown, however, we are seeing more people who come to the court, demonstrate their skills as an extern, and then will apply for the clerkship. So there's two great things about becoming an extern if you're thinking about clerkship. One is for you, you get to decide, is this the kind, you get exposure that helps you know if this is the clerking is really what you want to do. And then two, if the externship is a great fit and you demonstrate that you are, you enjoy this work and you will be able to help the court, that kind of demonstration has helped people in the clerkship process because we know their investment, their opportunities for growth, their openness to feedback. My last clerk had externed for me her first year out of her first fall. She applied. It was the fall of her second year. And so when I was hiring for her graduating class, she was in the process and I did end up hiring one of my own externs. It's not at all unheard of.
Right. And my observation is it can help. It doesn't hurt. It's not required. A lot of the time, interestingly enough, our externs come to us at the end of their second year, and we've already hired or are already hiring for clerkships in the upcoming in their graduation cycle. So some of our externs come here and the hiring process is already done. It doesn't make any difference. Here's the deal. Externship is an excellent opportunity. Do it whether you're going to come here as a clerk or not. It's just an outstanding a chance to kind of see how the courts work.
You do see a lot of you see what the court is doing on the inside, but in all of our roles, you are seeing a lot of filings by the parties. So you see, advocacy that you are going to learn from one way or the other. You will be seeing lawyers who are practicing, and they will be a good model for you about, okay, this is what I want to do. This is effective. So even the things that you're not writing and you're reading are educational and will help you develop. And
you'll see bad modeling as well.
You'll
see, oh man, I'm never going to practice like this. I'm never going to do what this guy does. Right. Yeah.
It's both ways. Emmy had a question in the chat.
She asked if you had a master's degree or something besides undergrad, do you also include that in your application material?
Oh,
yeah.
You're welcome to. It's not a required part of the application, but I would not omit it if you have it.
Yeah, and frankly, that's a good sign of writing experience. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing to include.
Aubrey, if you're still there and can jump on, do you want to very quickly, you mentioned OLSPIF, but I think a lot of students know what OLSPIF is, but could you just, for the Oregon law students, very quickly chime in? And I don't know if anyone from Willamette or Lewis and Clark has anything about funding, but if anyone else wanted to chime in, of course, they're welcome to as well. If Aubrey's still here, I don't know. She may not be. I know some people dropped off. I think she's gone. Okay, well, anyone who wants to talk about Old Spiff, Oregon law students, please reach out to us. I'm happy to chat more. Aubrey also is one of the reps, so she would also be happy to talk to you.
There's a question in the chat from Colton, and the question is, for any of the extern positions, is there a preference between 1L and 2L? And what I would say to that is that actually does vary by chambers. Some judges think, I want someone who has the writing experience that they've had the 2 years to, develop. And other people will think, oh, well, this is a person who is available now because they're a 1L, but I think they might not be available next year as a 2L. Maybe they'll be doing something else. And they like to grab the person as a 1L. So it varies by chambers. I wouldn't let whether you're a 1L or a 2L affect whether you're going to apply, because again, these applications go to all the hiring chambers, and different chambers have different things that they're looking for in terms of experience with the externs.
Amen.
Oh, for Willamette students, so everybody, this is the day to start working on your applications for not just this, but more importantly, the things that are going to expire. So I see in the chat that Casey is pointing out that for Willamette, your public interest fellowship application is due tomorrow. So there's that opportunity for funding. And then the OLEO one, which I mentioned, is the 18th. And check with your career services. We certainly don't, know the latest information on all possible funding. We do fully support these as credited, like Judge Egan was saying, as credited externships. And so even if it doesn't work for you to take an unpaid position in the summer, for example, but you might be able to do one in the school year for credit. Know that all of us who participate in the extern hiring on a regular basis, we're very familiar with all of the paperwork and hours and evaluations that are required by the schools, and more than happy to complete those.
Any other questions online or in the room? We're all good? Okay, I think that might be it. Justice Duncan, as far as the questions.
Great.
I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and let's see, stop recording.